Hello and welcome to Space News Live. I do this live stream every week at the same time. So as I say, it's a good place to come and give your opinion and your thoughts about space news. I'm going to recap the two videos I did earlier this week and a space news video. And yeah, if you've got any thoughts or opinions on those videos, we can go into that. I'll read some of the comments people left on the videos, but you can talk about any space topic. So the first video I did this week was on T-Finner, radioactive decay sail. So for me, this was a new concept, although some of the comments said that it's been around for a while. I came across this article, such on Centauri Dreams, about this propulsion system, and there's a paper that the authors did on this propulsion system. So I thought it was interesting to do a video on it. So the paper is here, and it's linked in the video's description. So if you want to read it, you can. But basically, the idea is, and there's some graphic here. It's a thin sheet of what's called a thrust sheet, and basically it's made up of three layers. You've got in the middle, you've got the fuel, which is radioactive material. Then you have a retention layer here on the left, and on the right you have an absorber, which is beryllium. Basically it absorbs the radioactive decay products, which are alpha particles. So they can't go in the direction of the absorber, they can only go in the opposite direction, and that gives you thrust. So it's very, very simple concept. You basically can use it as a propulsion system using natural radioactive decay. Right? So you don't need a nuclear reactor. You don't have to put any energy in. It's just natural radioactive decay. And then you put, I think there's another image here. Then you have like lines to your payload, which is 400 meters behind. 400 meter tethers, and by using the tethers, you can like push them, and you can go in any direction you want. And another advantage of this system, as opposed to a solar sail, is with solar sail you can only go in one direction. With this, you could flip the sheet to slow down. So you can speed up, you can slow down, you can navigate by pulling the tethers. So it's a quite simple, elegant system. There's not much to it. I think it's pretty easy to understand how it works. It's just a thrust sheet. The difficult thing is the isotope production. You need to generate somehow the radioactive material in enough quantities that you can put it into sheets. The authors suggested radium-228, and the way you'd make that is through using a linear accelerator. As you can see here in the decay chain here, the red line is radium-228. So the half-life is 1.9 years. So it's it quickly decays. So you'd have to fabricate the sheet quickly and then launch. But there's other materials you can use that have much longer half-lives. So if fabrication is a problem, just use a different isotope. They all have different thrust profiles. For instance, here I have this thing here. So you can have multi-stage versions by having some sheets made from one material with a particular half-life, and then some other sheets made from a different material, and so you get different profiles. So for instance, you got I think this is thorium and actinium, and then this is this is actinium here. So basically you've got a very radioactive material, so you get high thrust to begin with, and then that just goes down after a year or two, and then you've got this other material that's much longer lasting half-life, so it just generates slower thrust but builds up over time. So you can have multi-stage versions of the system. So it's quite versatile. Here's a graphic of, depending on the kind of radioactive material, you get different thrust. So this blue line is the thorium-228. You get a lot of thrust to begin with because it's got a short half-life. So it's very active over the first couple of years, and then it just kind of peters off. So that's thorium-228. The red line is radium-228, and then you got actinium. So basically, the longer half-life, the lower the thrust, but it's more continuous. So depending on the mission you want to do, you can change the isotopes or stack them together. So it's a very interesting concept, and this graphic kind of explains a bit more about how you would navigate. You have these panels. Each one of these is a panel. So depending on the panel configuration, and then you use the tethers to push and pull it in, pull the line in, pull it out, let it out. You can rotate the panels. You can collapse some of the panels. So you've got lots of options in terms of navigating our vector control, thrust vector control. It's kind of cool. Yeah, here's another graphic of how the system works. So the gray area just absorbs any ejected alpha particles. So there's no thrust in this direction because it's just blocked. The yellow layer is the actual fuel. So this is the fuel that undergoes radioactive decay. The alpha particles ejected don't have any particular direction, any preferred direction. They're blocked in the forward direction, so they just escape in the back direction. And you have a thin retention layer here. That's just so the daughter products don't boil off or anything. This is very thin. In this case, 50 nanometers. You don't want to block the alpha particles escaping, and because these have momentum and they go in this direction, the vehicle goes in the opposite direction. So yeah, and these particles are ejected at 5% the speed of light, which is 16,000 kilometers per second, and that generates enormous speeds and gives you enormous delta V. So delta V is directly related to the speed of the exhaust thrust, in which case this is the alpha particles. So that's 5% the speed of light. So it's a huge thrust. And I think in the video I include this graphic, just to get rid of myself for the moment. So you can see the different propulsion types and the fuel efficiency, which is measured in ISP. So a chemical rocket gets you 300 to 450 seconds. 450 is the most you'd get from liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen. You got ion thrusters 3 to 4,000, and then nuclear, anything from 800 to 9,000. But TFINIS system gives you 1.6 to 1.8 million seconds, which is just amazing fuel efficiency. And it can get you a delta V of 100 kilometers per second with thorium, and some other materials can get you 120 to 150 kilometers per second. And a very simple concept. Just radioisotope sheet to generate thrust. That's the concept in a nutshell. This is graphic I didn't include in the video, but the authors included it in the study, and you can see TFIN here over in the left hand side. There's various different concepts: single stage, two stage, and O-berth. O-berth is just basically heading towards a planet, and as you accelerate, you get and you swing around it, you get a velocity boost. And apparently, if you do this around the sun, you can get 40 kilometer per second boost just by using that maneuver. So it can get you enormous speeds. And as some of the commenters were saying, can you not use it as a solar sail as well? And the answer is yes. If you coat the retention layer, this is a better graphic. This is the blue layer. If you coat that with something that's suitable for a solar sail, like aluminium, for instance, or mylar or something like that, yes, then you can bounce. You can use the sun, or you can bounce a laser off it to get even more thrust. So it's very versatile, and you can use it in a hybrid system. So that's the first video I did this week, and there's quite a few comments on that. So we have Richard Dunra, who's saying the ISP is truly impressive, especially considering it's basically a passive system. The fun part is going to be designing a containment in case of a booster failure in the atmosphere or LEO, and the endless paperwork of the environmental impact studies. I hope this idea bears fruit because of the promise it shows. It could be used for interstellar probes if there was a solar sail for breaking into the destination system, but we still need warp drive, hyperspace drive. So here's the thing, you don't need a solar sail for braking. Basically, you can just turn the thrust sheet 180 degrees and then it will slow down because the thrust has been reversed. So it's very versatile. It can speed up quickly, it can slow down quickly as well. And you can use it as a hybrid system, you can use it as a solar sail. So that's great. And in terms of paperwork, the US government has made it easier to launch small amounts of radioactive material now. So certainly a small system, the paperwork wouldn't be too bad. I think the big issue with this is the isotope production, because apparently a linear accelerator is the best way to go, and you'd need to build it. It's quite expensive, but I think that's the big issue with this system at the moment. And Christian Libertarian is saying, very cool concept. I think the launch safety precautions described are overblown. Alpha emitters are usually only dangerous if ingested. And Malk007 replies, they have to be there in case of the rocket blowing up. That's the thing. Sure, alpha particles are not that, they can't get through the skin, but if it blows up, then of course it goes into the atmosphere, you could breathe it in, and then you've got alpha emitters inside of you, and then yeah, you get cancer. So yeah, they have to be very careful. So I say in the video, you'd put it in some kind of canister container. So you'd curl up the thrust sheet, put it into a container. So if there was an explosion, there was an accident, it would be safe. And then in space, it's released from the container, unfurls, and then you get thrust. But yes, they definitely have to look into how to make it safe for launching. And the backer that catches news or something, the backer that chews. This is a game changer. I wonder how far this can be scaled up. Yeah, I don't see any issues with scaling it up, but yeah, I mean, they're doing a phase 2 study, so they'll go into more detail and more modeling, which is great. And Chengong388 says, launch the sheet without the fuel, then launch the nuclear stuff separately, spray it onto the sheet in space. Yeah, so they're going to do a phase 2, and hopefully they'll go into more detail on how the system will work. And we had some more comments. iDrive3D says, can this be simultaneously used as a light laser sail? If so, how big could the boost be? And also we had someone else say, HJY1709, could this propulsion system be assisted by lasers? The answer is yes. You can have a hybrid system. You just paint the or coat the retention layer in aluminium or some kind of material suitable for a solar sail. And then you can use the sun as well as extra propulsion, or you can bounce a laser off it. Like, you know, there's various options. And Eagle Pursuit says it's an intriguing concept. The big challenge is safely getting the radioactive material into space. If this system were to be deployed at scale, it might be worthwhile to install some kind of reactor in space to produce the fuel. I wonder how large a payload one these could feasibly haul. So I think in the baseline design, the payload is 30 kilos. But of course, you could scale this system up. But again, the problem is generating the isotope. That's the bottleneck. But definitely for like small payloads, 30 kilos, yeah, you could you wouldn't need a lot of radioactive material. In terms of making the isotopes in space, that would allow you to create more radioactive materials, such as californium-254, that has a half-life of 6 months, but it has absolutely massive thrust because it doesn't just emit an alpha particle. It kind of breaks in two, so you get massive momentum, 20 times as much. So the thrust would just be enormous, but you'd have to make that in space. So you'd have to have some kind of linear accelerator in space. And actually, the next comment kind of goes into that a bit more and explains it. So it says, it's from MS Kelly RLV. This really isn't a new concept. It's been around for my whole life, 71 years, and rejected for a variety of reasons. I'm surprised anyone would pick it up again, but they must have some new insight that overlooks the prior skepticism. One thing I would advocate to get around all the regulatory hurdles is to establish a very large solar-powered linear accelerator in space to manufacture radioisotopes from non-radioactive materials. In the vacuum of space, unachievable on Earth, one can build an arbitrary large linear accelerator which is much simpler than any curved track accelerator. It would basically store solar power in nuclear form. Cells could be plated in space by vacuum vapor deposition. No radioactive material ever needed to be launched from Earth. So there you go then. And I mean, I think later on that would be the way to go, making the cells in space, because you can use some better materials that have higher thrust, but they're just so radioactive and they have such a short half-life, you wouldn't make them on Earth. You wouldn't be able to launch them from Earth, and by the time you've manufactured them and launched them, they would have been used up anyway. So you'd have to make them in space. And I'm thinking of Californium-254. But yeah, so that's the first video on T-Fineer, whatever. And then on to the second video I did this week. Bring it up. And that's lunar roads. So I've been meaning to do this video for a couple of weeks now. I go into not just roads, it's also launch pads, landing and launch pads, and also unsheltered, unpressurized shelters. So the idea is that whatever you want to do on the moon, you need to be able to move around, you need to explore, you need to survey, you need to place scientific equipment, you need to unload cargo, you need to load it, you need to build facilities, you need to do the prospecting and extracting and processing resources. So you have to move around on the surface. The problem is, and I think don't have any video here. Yes, we have some video. Bring that up. So this is the Apollo mission, Apollo 16 Grand Prix. If it comes up, there it is. So this is the lunar rover vehicle from the Apollo missions, and it's going to start moving around now. But the problem is there's lots of like boulders and rocks and divots and slopes. Add to that the low friction, and it's just difficult to move around. I think they did manage short bursts of 13 to 18 kilometers, but NASA limited them for safety reasons to 6 to 8 kilometers. It's just very difficult to move around without slipping and sliding. You have to avoid all the boulders and all the craters. So you do this zigzag. You'd have to zigzag around all the debris and so on. So it would just take you a long time to get anywhere. And if you've got any kind of cargo you're traveling with, you're transporting, you'd have to go very slow. 5, at most 10 kilometers an hour. So the problem is, if you're at the Artemis base camp and you want to go to the floor of Shackleton crater, I have another video, if I can bring that up. If you want to go to the floor of Shackleton crater, I'll put myself down here. You're talking a distance of, I think in the video I say 5 to 13 kilometers. The vertical distance is 4 kilometers from the rim to the crater base is 4 kilometers, and the base camp is some number of kilometers away from the rim. So you're talking 5 to 13 kilometers. Adding all the zigzags, avoiding the craters, the boulders, you're talking 10 to 20 kilometer distance. So you're talking 2 hours, maybe 2 hours to get there, 1 to 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours to get back. And so you're spending half your time, half your day just traveling. And in practice more, because you've got 8 hours for your spacesuit, but in practice it's 6.5 hours with safety margins. So you're spending a lot of your time traveling, and you're not getting anything done. So that's solved if you have roads, because you can safely travel at higher speeds, perhaps between 10 to 20 kilometers per hour. So if you're going twice as fast, you spend half the time traveling and more time doing actual work, the surveying, the scientific activities, or the resource extraction, right? So that's what you want to be doing. So to do that, you need roads, basically. So you'd be able to construct the lunar landing pads, launch and landing pads. Then you'd have roads connecting the landing pads to your base camp. Then you'd have roads towards the craters you want to investigate. Basically, yeah, you just build out the roads, and it allows you to travel much more quickly and get more stuff done on the surface of the moon, which is, the reason you're there. This graphic is like the kind of things you want to do. You've got landing pads, you've got blast shields and berms, you've got unpressurized shelters, you've got roads connecting everything together. Then you've got your base camp and your facilities. And it's got mentioned here power plants. There's going to be a 100 kilowatt nuclear power plant on the moon. So you have to prepare the ground first. You've got to flatten the ground, and you've got to transport the nuclear power plant or the components from the landing pad to where the plant's going to be. So you've got a lot of activity and a lot of movement. So you want roads. So this graphic is from Redwire, and they're working on their Mason system, which consists of a grader, which is basically just getting rid of all the dirt, debris. It compacts the ground, it compresses it, and then you'd sinter the ground and perhaps tile it afterwards, just so you got a path that lasts longer. So you need quite a few different pieces of equipment. You'd need a mobile crane boom. You'd need front end haulers, and these basically just remove soil from the surface. This is actually an Astro. I recognize this one. This is a Astrolab Flex vehicle. Then you have the haulers. You'd have the compactors and so on. You'd have equipment that can sinter the ground, and then maybe there's systems that can tile the ground. I don't know if I have any videos showing that, but basically, I have a video of some of the rovers. So there's going to be two kinds of rovers. There's going to be the unpressurized rovers that NASA is going to be using, and then you have from JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, you have a pressurized rover. That's their contribution to the Artemis mission, and basically it's pressurized and it supports a crew. I think two crew for 30 days, so you can travel quite a distance, so that'll be great. But obviously with roads, they'll be able to go further. They'll be able to do more science exploration, and So I think, as I say, we have to build lunar infrastructure. We need roads, we need landing pads, we need ground preparation, we need unpressurized shelters, and so that's the second video I did on lunar roads. And I think I'll be doing more videos on the moon next week. There's more topics I want to talk about, and more infrastructure I want to cover as well. So anyway, that's JAXA. Cool. Called the Lunar Cruiser. Very cool concept from JAXA. We have quite a few comments on the. Actually, there's some comments anyway. I won't say quite a few, but let's bring up the comments. Here they are. Bring myself down here. And Marty the Martian is saying, while building roads may not be the most exciting task to perform on the moon, as someone who takes a great interest in all infrastructure here and in space, I would respectfully disagree with that statement. Yeah, okay. Reads, roads are exciting, especially when they're on other planets or moons. And Wingsley is saying, in addition to what is shown in this video, the Futurism channel on YouTube, Ian Long, author of book How to Develop the Moon, proposed lunar railroads. Railroads on the Moon, Mars, and other large celestial bodies would enable very powerful surface transportation systems for both personal and cargo. A railroad system could also be engineered to overcome the terrain issues mentioned in your video. And someone else says, rather than a road, what about a railway? And roads are not fancy, but they are the artery and veins of all the countries. Well, it's funny you should mention railways, lunar rail network. And Marty, the Martian, is saying, back of the cruiser looks like hydrogen tanks, and are they planning a fuel cell vehicle? Well, it wouldn't surprise me. I know Honda is working on fuel cells. I also wondered what they were when I looked at the video. I don't know. I don't know what they are. But yeah, I mean, they must have some kind of power system. So maybe it's fuel cells. I don't know. Yeah, the answer is I don't know. But on the comments on the Lunar Rail Network, I'm going to do that video next week. Because, yeah, people commented about it. I looked into it. And there's definitely stuff I can talk about. So that's one of the videos I'm doing next week on lunar infrastructure. And I'm also doing another video, which I'll probably do first, on another lunar piece of infrastructure. So yes, I'm talking about the moon next week. And yeah, there's other things further in the future I want to do about the moon as well. So yeah, there's plenty to talk about because there's plenty happening. Which is great news. And then on to space news this week. Bring it up. So this is Astrobotics. I think it's called Zodiac. It's kind of a test bed for launching and landing. You can put payloads in here, sensors, technology, payloads, whatever. And you can just test them. Northrop, I think, are doing a study. You are correct. I have the PowerPoint. There's like 10 pages. They go into quite a bit of detail on their lunar track network, but it's not just Northrop Grumman because this is from the Lunar A10 study from DARPA. There's quite a few companies, I think 10 companies. They all give presentations. Northrop Grumman's presentation was on the Lunar Rail Network, but they can integrate with the other companies who also can support them. So, for instance, who's going to make the track? Who's going to create the metals for the rail track? Who's going to do the sleepers? And then you've got power, you've got network, you've got communications, you've got the leveling. So there's a lot of other companies. And when you integrate them all together, you can build a lunar rail network. So that's my video next week. The Lunar A10 study was great. There's a lot of presentations that are all publicly available. And so it gave me quite a few ideas. So yeah, so this is the Zodiac Launch and Landing Vehicle, and this is Andøya. You can see they got northern lights in the background there. So they'll be having that system launching from Andøya, the same place that ISA Aerospace launched from, and hopefully they're launching again later this year for their flight 2. So that was the first. That was the first piece of news I did this week. And then what else I did? Oh yes, this guy, Amit Shrestha. Anyway, I say his name properly in the video, but he's going to be the Associate Administrator for NASA. That's the top civil servant. So he's giving advice to Sean Duffy, who's the political appointee. He is a human exploration guy. He's been working on the projects, Moon to Mars projects, and International Space Station flight director. So he's more on the human exploration side than the science side, which is kind of the direction NASA wants to go into. It's more, let's just do the exploration, and we don't do the Earth science focus. So it's good for Moon to Mars, and the US administration seems very keen to go to the moon quickly, because they're competing with China, even though China doesn't see it as a race, and I don't see why it has to be a race. But anyway, that's the they're racing against China, and they want to beat China. This is why they're having the 100 kilowatt nuclear power plant by 2030, and so yeah, all full steam ahead for the moon, which is great. So anyway, that's the new the new civil servant guy at NASA. And the final story was on Oklo, a nuclear recycling center. I've been talking quite a bit about nuclear propulsion systems, and they all require nuclear fuel. And the issue is, how do you generate the fuel? How to recycle fuel? So that's why I included Oklo. They're working on radioisotope production, which is good for the Phineas system. It's good for the nuclear batteries, the radioisotope thermoelectric generators, which also have use on the moon for keeping rovers warm during the lunar night. They generate a small amount of electrical power and heating, thermal power. So I did a video on Xeno power. You've got the nuclear thermal propulsion, nuclear electric propulsion, T-Phineas system. So there's lots of nuclear propulsion systems. So you need the nuclear fuel. So I did a video, I did a segment on that. So yeah, that's the news this week. And in terms of what I'm doing next week, as I said, I'm going to do 2 videos on the moon infrastructure. One's the lunar rail network, and another one I'm doing. And yeah, so that's my plan for next week. So yeah, thank you for joining, and I'll see you next week.